Now, you can leave a place and still carry it with you. You can end a relationship, move out of a home, leave a job, and tell everyone, even yourself, that it is over. And physically, it may be over. But then you wake up in the morning, and before your feet touch the floor, the old conversation begins again. You see, holding on is not always love. Sometimes it is love mixed with a demand, the demand that yesterday become different before you permit today to begin. Life is moving, so ask yourself, are you holding the past or is the past holding you? Now think about what you carry into an ordinary morning. You open your eyes and almost immediately the mind reaches backward. It finds the conversation that did not end the way you wanted. It remembers the person who never explained. It returns to the place where you felt overlooked, betrayed, or left behind. Then you get out of bed, you make your coffee, you answer messages, you begin the day, and outwardly everything appears to be moving, but inwardly you may still be standing in a room that no longer exists. A song comes on, and there you are again. You see a name on a screen, and the body tightens before you have even formed a thought. You pass an old workplace, find a photograph, or hear that someone has moved on, and suddenly the present is being compared with a life that is no longer here. And then the mind begins rehearsing what you should have said, what they should have understood, what you would say if you had one more chance. You may have won that imaginary argument hundreds of times. You have delivered the perfect speech, made every point, and left the other person completely speechless. And still, somehow you have not gained one peaceful morning. And think about that. How many times must an event happen if you continue recreating it inside yourself? The physical event may be over, but the inner event is still taking place. Now, remembering is not the problem. A memory may return because something mattered, because you loved, because you were hurt, or because part of you is still trying to understand. Holding on begins when the memory carries a demand. You need the other person to understand. You need the apology to arrive. You need the plan to return. You need the loss to make sense before you permit yourself to feel peaceful again. And this is important. The pain may be real. The betrayal may be real. What happened may have been unfair. And accepting that it happened does not mean calling it good. Acceptance simply says, this has occurred, and I will no longer spend today demanding that yesterday become different. You may still establish a boundary. You may seek justice. You may protect yourself, ask for support, or take whatever responsible action is available. But your peace cannot remain entirely dependent on another person correcting what has already taken place. Letting go may happen slowly. It may happen in layers. You are not failing because the memory still hurts. You are simply beginning to see the demand hidden beneath it. Let me give you an example. Imagine a traveler who purchases a ticket for a journey that means a great deal to him. He has thought about this destination for months. He has pictured the streets, the people, the life that may be waiting for him when he arrives. And then, on the morning of departure, the train is canceled. At first, he assumes there will be another one, so he remains on the platform, holding the ticket in his hand. Other trains arrive, their doors open. Conductors call out destinations he has never considered. People step aboard carrying bags, uncertainty, excitement, and all the ordinary hopes people carry when they do not know exactly what comes next. But the traveler does not move. He says, "That is not my train." The station employees explain that the original route has been discontinued. There is no later departure. No replacement has been scheduled. Still, he waits, because leaving the platform would mean admitting that the journey he planned is truly gone. And somehow, waiting begins to feel like loyalty. Holding the ticket begins to feel like honoring the dream. Days pass, then months. The edges of the ticket become worn, the ink begins to fade, yet he protects it carefully while train after train arrives and departs. One day a conductor sits beside him and asks, "Are you holding that ticket because it can still take you somewhere, or because you are afraid to discover where another journey might lead?" Now the traveler is not foolish. The destination mattered. The disappointment was real. But what began as hope had quietly become resistance. Life was still arriving at the station. He simply refused to board it. Now perhaps you have been carrying a ticket of your own. It may be a relationship you believed would last, a career you thought would define your life, a family you imagined in one particular form, a promise someone made and did not keep, a version of yourself you believed you would always be. The ticket proves that the destination mattered, but it does not prove that life must still take you there. You may honor what you hope for without remaining at the station after the train is gone. You may grieve the journey you wanted and still become available for another one. Leaving the platform is not betrayal. It is not saying the dream meant nothing. It is recognizing that life is still arriving, still opening doors, still offering movement. And yet there is a reason the mind prefers to remain with the familiar ticket. You see, the ego has a great affection for what is familiar, even when what is familiar is painful. Familiar pain has a name, it has a history, it has a story you know how to tell. You know who disappointed you, what should have happened, where the unfairness began, and why you have every reason to remain exactly where you are. The future does not offer that kind of certainty. The future asks you to step forward without knowing whether another door will open, whether another person will stay, or whether the next journey will resemble anything you once planned. And so the mind may choose a known sorrow over an unknown possibility. Not because you enjoy suffering, not at all. You may have been trying to protect yourself. The story gave you someone to blame. It gave you a reason not to risk again. It kept you connected to the person, the opportunity, or the former life you were afraid to lose completely. But there is something deeper here. Sometimes you are no longer attached only to what happened. You are attached to who you became because it happened. The one who was abandoned, the one who was betrayed, the one who was overlooked, the one whose chance was taken away, the one who was right and never recovered. Who would you become if that identity were no longer required? Perhaps the identity once helped you survive, but what once protected you can eventually become the very thing that confines you. Now, this is where we often confuse attachment with love. Love can value what was real without demanding that it return in exactly the same form. Love can be grateful for what was given. It can wish another person well. It can remember a beautiful season without insisting that the season continue forever. Attachment adds a condition. It says, you must remain as I need you to be. You must make the choice that allows me to feel peaceful. This relationship must keep its former shape, and my future cannot begin until you restore the past. And that is not freedom for either person. And you see, love allows movement. Attachment tries to freeze life. It tries to hold a person, a relationship, a child, a career, or even a dream at one preferred moment and say, this is the form you must keep. But nothing living remains in one form forever. There is a sentence that captures the spiritual freedom I am speaking about. Adopt a philosophy of having a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing. Now, being attached to nothing does not mean caring about nothing. It does not mean you stop loving. It does not mean you abandon your plans, your intentions, or the things that matter deeply to you. It means you stop turning your preference into an ultimatum. You can love someone fully without claiming ownership of their choices. You can work toward a goal with your whole heart without declaring that your peace will be destroyed if life redirects you. You can honor what happened without requiring it to return. Attachment says it must happen this way. Openness says this is what I intend, but I remain available to a wisdom larger than my plan. That is not a lack of commitment. It is commitment without control. It is love without a cage. And yet many people sincerely believe they are moving forward while something beneath the surface is still holding them in place. Now, imagine that you are standing on a boat. The sails are raised. The wind is moving in your favor. You can see the direction you want to travel, and you begin doing everything you know to do. You adjust the ropes, you study the sky, you move from one side of the boat to the other, you work harder, become more determined, and yet the boat barely moves. So you begin blaming the wind, Perhaps the sea is against you. Perhaps the boat is too old. Perhaps the timing is wrong. Perhaps you are simply not trying hard enough. But beneath the surface, where no one can see it, the anchor is still resting on the bottom. And this is how emotional attachment often works. Outwardly, you may be making plans. You may be meeting new people, applying for opportunities, reading books, changing your surroundings, and telling yourself that you are ready. But inwardly, the anchor may still be attached to an apology you need, a regret you repeat, a former identity you protect, or a future that must unfold in one particular way. Now, I am not suggesting that every difficulty in life is created by attachment. The sea can be rough, the wind can change, circumstances are real. But sometimes we complain about everything above the surface while refusing to examine what remains attached beneath it. What are you blaming in the wind while your consciousness remains anchored to yesterday? You do not have to fight the ocean. You do not have to become angry with the boat. You may simply need to lift what is keeping you from moving. Because a favorable wind cannot move a life that remains emotionally anchored to the past. Now, lifting the anchor does not mean abandoning the journey. This is where many people become confused. They believe that if they release one outcome, they are giving up on everything. If they let go of a person, the love must not have been real. If they release resentment, then somehow they are approving of what happened. But letting go is not approval. It is not weakness. It is not indifference. And it is not the decision that nothing meaningful can happen again. Giving up says, there is no possibility left. Letting go says, perhaps there are possibilities I cannot see while I continue demanding only one. You can release a timeline without abandoning your intention. You can release control without refusing responsibility. You can release an old identity without denying the life that created it. You see, flexibility is not defeat. It is the ability to respond to the life that is actually here rather than spending all of your strength arguing for the life that should have been. The anchor is lifted not because the destination no longer matters. It is lifted because you are finally willing to move. And movement begins when you become honest about what you are actually holding. Now, many people say, I cannot let go. But that statement is so large that the mind does not know what to do with it. Let go of what? The person, the memory, the love, the lesson, the entire part of your life in which it happened? No. You do not have to erase all of that. Begin by noticing the demand beneath the attachment. Perhaps the demand is, I need them to admit what they did, or I need to understand why. Perhaps it is, I need my life to return to the way it was, or I need this pain to disappear before I allow myself to live fully again. What demand are you actually holding? You see, sometimes you believe you are holding on to a person when you are really holding on to the explanation they never gave you. You believe you are holding a dream when you are actually holding the belief that happiness can arrive through only one door. Once you can name the demand, it is no longer operating entirely in the darkness. Then you begin to separate what was valuable from the grip surrounding it. You may keep the love, you may keep the memory, you may keep the lesson, the gratitude, the strength, and the boundary that experience taught you to establish. But you do not have to keep rehearsing the argument. You do not have to continue demanding a different past. You do not have to build your identity around the wound or require your peace to wait for another person's decision. You do not have to throw away the entire experience in order to release the part that continues hurting you. You can say, quite honestly, I wish it had been different. It was not, and I am no longer asking this moment to become yesterday. Think about the freedom in that. And then, rather than asking how you will rebuild your entire life, look for the next movement that is available now. Perhaps there is a conversation you no longer need to rehearse. Perhaps there is a relationship in the present that has been receiving only what is left of your attention. There may be a room that needs care, a boundary that needs to be expressed, a creative impulse that has been postponed, or support that you have been afraid to seek. Moving forward is not always one great heroic leap. Sometimes it is simply the decision to stop returning all of your available energy to something that can no longer receive it. The next step does not require complete emotional certainty. It requires enough willingness to stop standing still. Now, for some people, release will eventually include forgiveness. But forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood words in our spiritual language. Forgiveness does not mean you must invite someone back into your life. It does not mean trust is automatically restored. It does not mean the behavior was acceptable, the harm was insignificant, or the boundary must be removed. You may forgive and still say, "You may not enter this part of my life again." Forgiveness simply means that another person's behavior will no longer be allowed to live as a permanent condition inside your consciousness. They may never apologize. They may never understand what they did. They may continue telling the story in a way that makes them innocent and leaves you carrying all the weight. But their refusal to take responsibility does not have to become your lifelong sentence. And I want to be very clear about this. You do not have to force forgiveness before you are ready. Some wounds loosen slowly. Some attachments release in layers. You may need distance, protection, time, and support. That is not spiritual failure. Perhaps the first movement is simply becoming willing to be free, even if complete forgiveness has not yet arrived. And then life will give you opportunities to practice this freedom. You may see the person's name when you are not expecting it. You may hear that someone you once loved has moved on. You may watch another person receive the opportunity you believed was meant for you. You may enter a familiar place, find an old photograph, or experience another delay that reminds you of everything you once feared. And the body may react. The sadness may return. The anger may rise. For a few moments, the memory may feel very close again. Now, this does not mean you have failed. It does not mean all of your inner work has disappeared. A wound can remember without becoming your identity again. The difficulty begins when the feeling is immediately turned into the old conclusion. This proves I will never recover. Nothing new will come. I should never have left. My life ended there. But the feeling itself is not giving you those instructions. The feeling is simply moving through you. You see, sadness can visit without becoming your home. Loneliness can appear without proving that your boundary was wrong. A memory can return without reopening the door. A feeling may return without requiring you to return with it. Let it be present, let it move, and then come back gently to the life that is here now. Now, allowing does not mean that you sit quietly and refuse to participate in your own life. You may still make a difficult decision. You may leave an unhealthy situation, establish a boundary, seek support, apply for an opportunity, repair what can be repaired, or begin again. The difference is not always in what you do. It is in the consciousness from which you do it. You are no longer acting only from panic, revenge, desperation, or the demand that one particular outcome must occur before you can be at peace. There is a simple way of expressing this. You have to just be. You have to let go. You have to allow. You have to be free and make this your consciousness. Allowing does not mean doing nothing. It means taking the next honest step without strangling the result. It means participating fully while releasing the belief that you must control the entire path. Freedom is not knowing every turn before you begin. Freedom is being able to move without making your inner peace dependent on what waits around the corner. And this is why the Taoist understanding of flexibility is so important. A living branch bends when the wind arrives. It does not lose its roots. It does not surrender its nature. It moves because it is alive. But a dry branch becomes rigid. It insists on remaining exactly as it is, and eventually the wind breaks what will not bend. Now, flexibility does not mean having no direction. Your boundaries are the roots. Your values are the roots. Openness is simply the willingness to move without abandoning yourself. You do not need to accept every path. You only need to release the belief that meaning can exist in just one. Let me give you one final picture. Imagine a gardener who has cared for one particular bed of flowers for many years. The flowers were beautiful. They marked an important season of his life, and whenever he looked at them, he remembered everything that season had meant to him. But eventually, the weather changed. The petals fell, the stems became dry, the roots had completed their work, and still the gardener would not clear the soil. He said, "These flowers mattered too much. If I remove them, it will be as though they were never here." So he left every stem, every leaf, every faded part exactly where it had fallen. Now he continued visiting the garden. He purchased packets of new seeds. He placed them carefully on a shelf and imagined what might grow, but he never opened them. There was no available soil. Season after season, he spoke lovingly about the flowers that had once been there, while wondering why the garden no longer offered anything new. One day, a neighbor looked at the crowded bed and said, "Clearing the soil does not deny the beauty of the former season. It creates space for that beauty to become part of the earth." Think about that. The flowers do not become meaningless when their visible form is released. They become part of the soil. What they gave remains, but it remains differently. And perhaps this is what life is asking of you: not to deny what was beautiful, not to pretend the season did not matter, not to tear the memory out of your heart, but to allow what has ended to become wisdom. What you loved can remain part of you without occupying every open place within you. The garden does not betray the former season by becoming ready for another one. So return now to the question we began with. Are you holding the past, or is the past holding you? You do not have to erase the memory. You do not have to deny the love, approve of what happened, reopen a closed door, or remove a boundary that protects your peace. And you do not have to know exactly what comes next. You only have to notice when yesterday is asking for another day of your life. Keep the wisdom, keep the love, keep the boundary, keep what was true, but release the argument, release the demand, release the belief that moving forward would somehow betray what mattered. The former season does not disappear when the garden is cleared. It becomes part of the soil. It becomes part of what nourishes whatever is ready to grow next. The past stops holding you when you stop requiring it to become different before you permit yourself to live. And when you release what has completed its purpose, you discover that life was never leaving you behind. It was inviting you to move with it.